the government doesn't actually have any money on the federal level. They're just running the printing presses and stealing from the savings of the middle class. What we need to do is open our economy, let people get back to work, because no matter how much money you print and hand out to people, it's not going to help in the long run if we aren't producing goods and services and if the shelves become bare.
You know the numbers for how the cases of COVID are spiking in many parts of the country. They're higher now than they've been since this all began back in March. So how do we open up the economy?
Well, first of all, the number of cases may be spiking, but that also has a lot to do with the fact that testing is much more widely available than it was in the past. What we need to look at is hospitalizations, and hospitalizations are frankly down in many states. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we should take the coronavirus seriously, especially when it comes to those who are at high risk. So our seniors and those with underlying health conditions, we should have protections in place for them. But ultimately, many medical professionals and virologists and immunologists say that the only way we're going to defeat the coronavirus in the long run is by developing our herd immunity. And that means that young and healthy people who are in low risk categories need to be able to go out and live their lives. Shutting down the whole economy forever and ever isn't going to defeat this thing. Only by growing our herd immunity and letting people who are young and healthy get out there, that's how we're going to defeat the virus.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. As you know, the Trump administration is trying, as we speak, to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. This would throw millions of people off of health care coverage. Do you support that move?
The Obamacare has been a complete disaster. Healthcare is more expensive than ever. Health insurance is more expensive than ever. And yes, we need to repeal Obamacare, and we need to replace it with a plan that will actually fix healthcare. I'm the only candidate in this race with a plan to fix healthcare. We fix healthcare by personalizing it, not socializing it. Jared Golden wants to repeal Obamacare too. He just wants to replace it with socialism. I want to repeal Obamacare and personalize it. Fire the bureaucrats that are driving up all of our healthcare expenses in the country and put doctors and patients in charge. And those who'd like to read my healthcare plan, which I've developed hand in hand with local Maine doctors, can read it on my website, ericbrakey.com.
Let's talk about the federal budget. Right now, it is the federal government is spending far more money than it is taking in. It's been doing this for decades. The next Congress, the next president will have to deal with enormous financial problems that the government has created on its own. What would be your solution to these tremendous fiscal imbalances that we're seeing?
Yeah. Well, speaking as the only true fiscal conservative in this race, who isn't someone, both of my opponents were ready to spend trillions and trillions of dollars, this biggest spending package in all of human civilization, based on Nancy Pelosi's say-so alone without even a vote of Congress. That's crazy. We need to rein in the spending. We need to balance the budget. And sadly, Republicans have sometimes been just as bad as Democrats when it comes to getting spending under control.
Give us specifics. Where would you cut spending, or where would you raise taxes to try to bring the budget closer to being in balance?
I would start by following through with Donald Trump on his promises to bring our troops home from these never-ending trillion-dollar wars and put America first. We've spent trillions of dollars in Afghanistan, trillions of dollars in Iraq and Syria, trying to remake the Middle East. It's a failing policy. President Trump is the first president in my life to stand up against it, and we can save a lot of money and put America first if we end the never-ending wars.
Has the Trump administration increased spending on the military or decreased it?
Well, certainly, I think that we want to have the strongest military in the world. And
just answer the question. Has it decreased or increased spending? Because it's increased spending, right? And how does that do anything to reduce spending?
Right.
What you're saying doesn't make sense.
Certainly, military spending has increased because we haven't gotten our troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan yet. We need to get our troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to focus on having the strongest defense in the world and not waste trillions of dollars trying to be the policeman of the world.
All right. One last question. In the military realm, would you favor renaming U.S. military forts that are now named after Confederate soldiers?
No. I think that's ridiculous. And I think that, frankly, if we want to address inequities in our current system, it'd be better to focus on policies that exist right now. We can talk about criminal justice reform. We can talk about ways to create better accountability in police across America. Frankly, I think Maine police officers do an incredible job. And perhaps A lot of states across the country should look at what we do here in Maine and use us as an example for how for having police be the way police should be. But just symbolically renaming things doesn't do anything. In fact, I think it disrespects a lot of people who just want to honor our history.